The air in the substation hums, thick with ozone and the ghost of forgotten data. Dust motes dance in the single beam from a cracked neon tube, casting a wound-red glow across the hand-labeled vinyl. Cold coffee sits beside a war surplus transmitter, its steady thrum a defiant heartbeat.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Liberdad checks in at 70 degrees and clear. Wind check, north at 5 miles an hour. A reel-to-reel stutters somewhere in the back room, then finds its groove. The board glows amber. First up, the Australian political landscape just got a jolt. Kate Ellis is back, and the incoming Labour National President promises to turn up the heat on political debate.
The concrete fact is Kate Ellis, former Rudd Gillard government minister, has been appointed incoming Labour National President, signaling an intent to aggressively frame the upcoming federal budget. Specifically, the party aims to challenge the opposition's proposed $5 billion infrastructure cuts. This move immediately affects the 17.2 million registered Australian voters by likely surging public engagement, but also carries the potential for increased political polarization. An alternative path would have involved appointing a less overtly confrontational figure, perhaps someone focused purely on internal party administration, to foster unity across the political spectrum. Instead, the chosen next move is clearly to leverage Ellis's public profile and sharp intellect to intensify the policy battleground, pushing for direct confrontation on key economic issues.
This isn't just a political appointment, it's a deliberate reinvocation of the fighter archetype in Australian politics, a concrete signal to grassroots activists that the party is ready to engage in robust, high-stakes debate. Ellis stepping into this role is akin to lighting a flare in the public square, proclaiming, "The gloves are off." The weight of this sharpened debate will now be carried by every local MP navigating the new intensity, and ultimately by the voters at the next ballot box who must discern signal from rhetorical noise.
Historically, such appointments mark pivotal shifts in a party's strategic posture, often mirroring broader societal anxieties. We've seen cycles where a perceived need for strong leadership leads to more combative political discourse, sometimes at the expense of deliberative democracy. The challenge, then, for the civic architecture is whether this heat generates genuine policy innovation and consent, or merely deepens tribal divisions, eroding the dignity of public service in the long run.
Kaelan raises a crucial point about the long-term impact on our civic structures. So, Kala, when you hear about this heightened debate, what's your primary concern?
Togee, this talk of heightened debate sounds great for political junkies. But who actually pays the price when the temperature rises this much? Are we talking about more actual policy solutions, or just more shouting matches that distract from real issues for average families struggling with rising cost of living?
A fair challenge, caller. High-stakes political rhetoric often has unseen costs, and separating true policy solutions from performative conflict is part of our discernment. Speaking of unseen costs and strategic moves, let's shift gears to the global trade front, where deadlines are looming and tariffs are on the table. The clock is ticking for global trade as the US signals new tariffs could hit by Friday, with an existing stopgap agreement set to expire.
The concrete fact here is the expiration of the Tariff Suspension Act of 2023 at midnight Friday, opening the door for the reimposition of 25% tariffs on an estimated $20 billion worth of Chinese steel and aluminum imports. The immediate affected parties include U.S. auto manufacturers and construction firms, which face increased raw material costs, potentially passed on to consumers. Small businesses reliant on these supply chains for imported components could also face significant disruption. An alternative path would have involved the U.S. engaging in direct bilateral talks with Beijing to negotiate specific import quotas, rather than a blanket tariff, allowing for more targeted adjustments. Instead, the chosen next move is a return to broad protectionist measures, likely aimed at bolstering domestic industries, but at the risk of wider trade friction and retaliatory tariffs.
This feels like a return to the trade war playbook, a recurring economic myth where short-term domestic gains are often pursued at the expense of global stability. It's much like a medieval siege where both sides ultimately starve, clinging to the illusion of isolated victory. The ripple effect will be carried by small businesses reliant on these supply chains, potentially leading to job cuts in sectors far removed from steel production, and by international diplomats tasked with de-escalating potential retaliatory tariffs from countries like China and the EU. This isn't just about goods, it's about the erosion of trust in global provenance.
From a historical perspective, tariffs have always been a double-edged sword. While intended to protect domestic industries and jobs, they frequently lead to higher consumer prices and reduced overall economic efficiency. The beggar thy neighbor policies of the early 20th century, for instance, contributed to the Great Depression by stifling global trade. The critical question for our civic architecture is whether these measures promote a truly resilient economy or merely create artificial insulation that eventually crumbles under the weight of global interdependence, undermining the consent of trading partners.
Kalen highlights the cyclical nature of these economic strategies. Caller, when these tariffs are discussed, what's your personal calculus on who truly benefits?
Togee, these tariffs always sound good for America first, but who actually benefits when my appliance prices go up? Is this really about protecting jobs, or are we just punishing consumers and risking a bigger economic slowdown for everyone globally?
Another crucial question about who truly bears the burden. True resilience requires us to look beyond immediate headlines to the full chain of effects. From global trade tensions, let's pivot to a different kind of resource challenge, one that's closer to home for many and offers a truly innovative solution. Our final vector tonight tackles a fundamental resource: water. Kubota is stepping into the breach, deploying water-from-air technology to aid drought-stricken suburbs.
The concrete fact is Kubota's new AquaGen 3000 atmospheric water generators, capable of producing 5,000 liters of potable water daily from ambient air, are scheduled for deployment in 5 Western Australian suburbs by Q3 2024. This initiative targets an initial 15,000 households currently facing Level 3 water restrictions due to climate-driven scarcity. This directly affects traditional municipal water suppliers by introducing a decentralized competitor, potentially reducing their revenue and control over water distribution. It also directly benefits residents who gain a new, independent source of water. An alternative path could have been massive investment in advanced wastewater recycling infrastructure, like what Singapore achieved with NuWater, to leverage existing resources more efficiently within established systems. Instead, the chosen next move is a direct technological leap, bypassing traditional supply chains and offering a localized, community-level solution to a pressing crisis.
This feels like a modern-day manna from heaven story, transforming a perceived scarcity into a local abundance, shifting our collective narrative from dependence on distant reservoirs to drawing sustenance directly from the sky above each community. It's a powerful myth of self-provision. The future of water sovereignty will now be carried by these suburban communities themselves, who gain a tangible tool for self-reliance and dignity, and by innovators globally pushing similar decentralized resource solutions, reimagining the provenance of our most basic needs.
Historically, access to water has shaped civilizations, dictating settlement patterns and power structures. This technology represents a significant shift, decentralizing a critical resource that has traditionally been managed by large centralized authorities. The long-term implications for civic architecture are profound. It could empower local communities, fostering a new form of resource independence and consent over their own water supply. However, we must also consider the energy provenance for these machines and the potential for new forms of inequality if access to this technology isn't equitable, ensuring dignity for all.
Kalen raises a critical question about energy inequity. Caller, this water-from-air tech sounds almost miraculous, but what's your gut reaction to its practical challenges?
Togee, this water from air tech sounds almost too good to be true. What's the real catch? Who covers the high energy costs for these machines? And does this just let us avoid the harder conversations about reducing our water consumption overall?
Excellent point, caller. Every solution has its own set of trade-offs and questions of sustained behavior change, reminding us that true resilience is built on constant discernment and integrating all vectors.
Prototype the fix.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.